There is a silence that feels like home. And there is a silence that feels like exile. We often think love is a language of words, of I love you, of promises, of arguments that end in reconciliation. But love also has its pauses. Its spaces. The intervals between sentences, the breath before a kiss, the hush after laughter. And yet, not all silences are equal. There is the silence of trust. Two people reading in the same room, hearing only the turning of pages, the breathing, the occasional shift in a chair. That silence is safe. It is not empty, it is full. But then, there is another kind of silence. One that opens like a crack in the wall. It begins small, unnoticed, almost innocent. A question left unanswered. A glance not returned. The faint delay before responding to something tender. It is not loud. It does not scream. But it lingers. It grows. You see, words can cut. Yes. Words can wound. But wounds from words are visible, they bleed, they show themselves. Silence, however, has no blood. It does not announce itself. It eats from within. And what makes it unbearable is not the absence of sound, but the absence of recognition. A man, sitting by the fire, remembers the nights when the person he loved did not speak. Not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had already been said silently. Through absence. Through the closing of the heart. Silence becomes a mirror. You look into it and see yourself, alone. Even while another sits beside you. This is why silence hurts more than words. Words define, words accuse, words at least reveal the shape of pain. Silence leaves you with only your own shadow, echoing in a space where love once lived. There is a curve most people never see, the moment where silence shifts from comfort into distance. It is a fragile, invisible turning. Once crossed, there is no return. The silence of love dying is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of absence. And absence is heavier than anger. Think of two hearts, like two instruments. When they are tuned together, even silence resonates. When they are out of tune, silence feels unbearable. This is the strange cruelty of love. It is not the shouted arguments that destroy it. Arguments still mean the flame burns. Still mean there is something alive enough to defend, to protect, to hold on to. No. What ends love is the silence that follows the argument. The quiet withdrawal. The absence of reaching back. Silence is not neutral. Silence is a message. And in love, that message is always heard, even if unspoken. I will not say it. I do not care enough to answer. I have already left, though my body remains. That is the truth silence carries. And men, especially, know this wound. Because we are trained not to speak. Not to ask. Not to reveal when the silence is eating us alive. So we endure it. We carry it like a stone in the chest. We pretend it doesn't matter, but at night, when the house is quiet, the silence of another becomes our own silence. It becomes a second skin, heavy, suffocating. It is easier, sometimes, to hear cruel words than to hear nothing. Because cruelty at least gives us shape. It gives us something to push against. Silence gives us only a void. And in that void, the imagination begins its cruel work. What are they thinking? What have I lost? Am I still loved? Or am I already forgotten? The mind fills the silence with 1,000 possible words, none of them kind, none of them forgiving. Silence does not just hurt. Silence invents. It multiplies. It becomes a labyrinth with no exit. This is why silence is more dangerous than anger. Anger burns hot and then fades. Silence stays. And sometimes, the silence of the other forces us into our own silence. Two people, sitting side by side, no longer speaking, not because they are at peace, but because they are afraid. Afraid of breaking the fragile illusion that something still remains. But the rain outside knows. The fire knows. Time knows. What we will not say, time will say for us. There is no silence that does not echo. And in love, those echoes are never kind. There is a wound that silence carries. It does not begin with a scream. It does not tear like sudden anger. It arrives quietly. Almost gently. Like water dripping, slowly, endlessly, on stone. One drop, then another. No harm at first. But over years, the stone caves in. In love, silence works the same way. It is not the words that destroy most bonds. It is the absence of them. Two people can remain together for years. They can share the same meals, the same roof, even the same bed. And still, beneath the surface, silence grows like mold. Not visible, not loud, not dramatic. But present. Always present. And when silence has fully spread, it becomes the unspoken farewell. The goodbye no one says. The end that arrives before anyone leaves. Pause, sound of rain deepens, fire crackles softly. Think of the silences you have carried. Not the silences of peace, those warm, safe silences when two souls can rest beside one another without the need to fill the air. No. The other silences. The unanswered question. The letter that was never replied to. The gaze that turned away in the moment you needed it most. These silences, they cut deeper than words. Because words, even cruel ones, are alive. They show presence. They reveal care, even if twisted. Words say, I am still here. I am still responding. But silence. Silence says, I have already left you, though I still remain beside you. That is why silence hurts more than words. It is a betrayal not of the body, not even of the mind, but of the soul. It is the refusal to meet you where you are most human, in the need to be seen, to be heard, to be answered. Men, especially, know this silence. We endure it. We swallow it. We carry it as if it were nothing, though inside, it corrodes. Because we have been taught, do not complain. Do not ask. Do not name what is missing. And so we carry. Carry until our hearts ache with weight. Carry until our nights are filled not with rest, but with echoes. Because silence never leaves empty. It always fills itself with the mind's cruelest imagination. What do they think of me? Have I been forgotten already? Do I still matter? Or has my absence already begun while I still live? The mind invents 1,000 voices inside the silence. And all of them accuse. Pause, long silence, then voice lowers. Yet, within this cruelty, there is also a strange gift. Because when silence has spoken its final truth, when the absence has revealed itself fully, there is nothing left to hold. No argument. No denial. No illusion. The wound has finished its work. The farewell is complete. And in that, the soul is returned to itself. Yes, silence in love wounds. But silence in solitude heals. This is the paradox. The same force that kills intimacy also restores the self. The same hush that breaks connection also carries you back to who you are, before the noise, before the need, before the asking. The silence of another says, you are not seen. But the silence of solitude says, you are enough, even unseen. And in that final quiet after love, after loss, after the weight of all the silences endured, there comes a stillness. Not peaceful at first. No. At first, it feels unbearable. But with time, it softens. The rain becomes part of it. The fire becomes part of it. The breath itself becomes part of it. Until you realize, not all silences are cruel. Some are simply what remains when the words are over. And in that silence, at last, there is no fear. No plea. No anger. There is only being. And perhaps, in the end, that is what we return to. Not the silence that wounds, but the silence that heals. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of the soul.